Faith is often a source of hope and comfort for many folks, but in a horror movie that may not be enough. In fact, it may make things worse. I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 horror movie characters punished for their faith. Number 10. ABIN Cooper, Red State. Played by the phenomenal, dearly missed Michael Parks, Red State's pastor ABIN Cooper used his faith to rule with an iron fist. Living his life by the good book to extreme measures, this cult leader, himself largely based off Fred Phelps and his hatred-fueled Westboro Baptist Church, uses his twisted faith to commit atrocities. Thankfully, Cooper's own arrogance and strict faith is ultimately his undoing. Believing that the rapture is being ushered in during a final act shootout between this cult and the law, ABIN stops what he's doing and prepares to ascend to the skies. Things don't quite work out how this demented fella had imagined though, and Red State saw him eventually get his comeuppance. By the end of Kevin Smith's 2011 movie, Smith's first foray into horror, Pastor Cooper is locked up in prison, having been headbutted by John Goodman's Special Agent Keenan after this faux rapture. As for that rapture, it was nothing of the sort, instead being a prank played by trumpet-playing college kids pissed off with Cooper and his nuts antics. Number 9. Cat Lady, Terrifier. There isn't much we can actually show of this movie, but Cat Lady is thankfully one of the more safe for work parts. That's because the vast majority of Terrifier features modern horror legend Art the Clown murdering, mutilating, maniacally menacing, and wiping little shit on walls. However, there's a heartwarming moment as the clearly troubled Art is comforted by Cat Lady. The problem is, this comforting clearly didn't last all that long and unequivocally didn't succeed in relaxing David Howard Thornton's chilling Harlequin. Unfortunately, the character only ever referred to as Cat Lady in the film has faith that a good hug will quell Art of all the evil that lurks within him. And for a spell, the audience is led to believe that the affection and warmth of Cat Lady might well do the trick in halting Art's bloody plans. Sadly, the next time we see Cat Lady after this, she's merely a brutalised corpse, with Art wearing her scalp and breasts. The moral of the story here, never believe that a well-placed cuddle and blind faith in finding the good in someone will ever really work. If that were the case, Jules would be let out of the house. Number 8. Father Marcus, The Last Exorcism. In 2013's The Last Exorcism, it's both his loss of faith and restoration of faith that get Father Marcus into a pickle. Having lost his faith after his son was born with an extreme illness, Marcus spends his days conducting sham exorcisms. Upon receiving a request from a farmer in regards to his possessed daughter Nell, the character accepts this case and prepares to once again partake in what is surely a fake orchestrated situation or possibly a mental health issue. Of course, poor Nell really is under the influence of something demonic in The Last Exorcism. It takes a while for the full picture to become clear, with Marcus first believing that Nell has convinced herself she's possessed in order to deal with the shame of losing her virginity. By the time this picture concludes though, Marcus and the watching audience discover that the local townsfolk are part of a cult, with Nell disturbingly giving birth to a non-human child. Said child is thrown into a fire, which causes the fire to grow as a demonic scream fills the air. In seeing this sight, Marcus suddenly has his faith restored, grabs his cross and runs directly towards the fire in a move that likely resulted in his own death. Number 7. Sergeant Howie, The Wicker Man. As detailed by Sir Christopher Lee's Lord Summerisle, Sergeant Neil Howie was unknowingly the perfect human sacrifice once he turned up on the shores of the Hebridean island of Summerisle in The Wicker Man. While Edward Woodward's Howie is on the isle to investigate the disappearance of a young girl, he ends this 1973 picture by being burnt alive. For the inhabitants of Summerisle, they embrace a pagan lifestyle based around offering up a human sacrifice whenever there's been a poor harvest. Sergeant Howie believes that missing youngster Rowan has been earmarked to be killed in order to appease the gods, yet it's revealed how Howie himself is the ideal candidate for this murderous ritual. From Lord Summerisle, Howie meets the 4 requirements of having the power of a king, see man of law, is a fool, having adorned a punch outfit by this point, arrived on the island of his free will, and most importantly, is a virgin. The reason for Howie's virginity is due to his strict Christian beliefs, and this faith is tested by the beautiful Willow McGregor trying her best to seduce him. Once the sergeant had rebuffed Willow's advances, he'd essentially signed his own death warrant. Number 6. Terrence WYNN, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. For long-time Halloween fans, the mere mention of Cult of Thorn is likely to drum up a groan, and honestly even signing the cross would be a pretty appropriate reaction. By the time the troubled 6th movie made its way to cinema screens in 1995, the theatrical cut of The Curse of Michael Myers had a jumbled, bungled plot based around the Cult of Thorn. What's the Cult of Thorn? Well, it's revealed here as a group who've been controlling Michael Myers ever since he was an infant in the opening moments of John Carpenter's Halloween. Having given young Michael the mark of Thorn that meant the Shapes rampage across 4 prior movies, Myers famously absent from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was all orchestrated by a cult we would learn was headed up by Terrence WYNN, a person previously seen as the administrator of Smith's Grove Sanitarium back in Carpenter's 1978 picture. Resurfacing in Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers, WYNN is revealed to have broken Michael out of jail at the close of Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and here he is shown to have utter control over Myers. Of course, WYNN's faith in he and his cult of Thorn having command over Michael ends badly here in Curse, with the Shape eventually snapping and murdering the entire Thorn cult. Number 5. John Baxter, Don't Look Now. The fate of Donald Sutherland's John Baxter is a truly tragic one in Don't Look Now. There, John ends up dead, hoping, believing, trusting that his deceased daughter is somehow still alive and running around the streets of Venice. Despite holding her corpse during the opening act of this 1973 effort, young Christine having devastatingly drowned, John's time working in Venice has him convinced that his daughter is alive and well. Both dealing with their grief in different ways, John's wife Laura seeks to connect with their daughter via seance after a psychic informs her that Christine is still alive. While Laura is back in England, John is troubled by sightings of who he believes to be his daughter, and Don't Look Now concludes with him chasing the figure through the narrow streets of Venice. Unfortunately for John, his belief in his daughter still being alive was ill-fated, with it shockingly revealed that this mysterious figure is instead a dwarf who promptly slits John's throat with a meat cleaver as the film ends. Number 4. Grace Marshall, The Lodge. The Lodge ends with traumatised Grace Marshall fatally shooting her fiancé after believing she and her inner circle are in purgatory. While it's Grace's faith that leads to this tragedy, it's not entirely her fault that The Lodge gets to this shocking conclusion. This 2020 release earlier showcases how, as a child, Grace was the sole survivor of an extreme Christian cult mass suicide. Tormented to this day by the sermons of her deceased father, Grace relies on medication to keep the memories of her past at bay. When she attempts to bond with her beau's children in a lodge during the festive period, fiancé Richard being busy with work, things take a troubling turn as Grace's medication, her clothes, her belongings and her dog all go missing, with the power likewise going out. Convinced by the 2 children that all 3 of them died from carbon monoxide poisoning and are in purgatory, complete with one of the children hanging himself and surviving to prove this, Grace has a breakdown. It's revealed how little shits Richard and Mia had faked all of this and drugged Grace using her previous beliefs to punish her. Still, it's too late now, for Grace is convinced that yes, they are all in purgatory, to the extent that when Richard returns, she shoots him to prove her point. Number 3. Henry Frankenstein, Frankenstein. It takes a bold, brash person to proclaim that their skills and abilities make them a god, but that's exactly what happened to Henry Frankenstein. In James Whale's 1931 adaptation of Mary Shelley's iconic novel and Peggy Webling's 1927 play, Henry infamously utilises the body parts of buried bodies and recently hanged criminals to construct his own creature. The reason for Dr. Frankenstein doing all of this is that he is so blindly sure that he would be able to create life if he puts his mind to it. And to his credit, Colin Clive's Henry is indeed somewhat successful in his mission, putting together a monster that is played by the legendary Boris Karloff. So assured of his own skills is Frankenstein though, at one point in the movie he goes as far as to refer to himself as a god, stating, "In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God." How is Henry Frankenstein's unrelenting faith in his own self punished? Well, his most prized creation nearly kills him before the monster itself is set ablaze by the local townsfolk. Townsfolk who are just a tad miffed at Henry for the chaos and carnage his creature had caused. Number 2. Katie/Maud, Saint Maud. Saint Maud is one of the hands-down best horrors of recent years. Made widely available this past February, this picture centres on the titular Maud, or Katie as she was previously known. This young nurse's life is thrown upside down when she fails to save the life of a dying patient. That harrowing event takes place when the character is Katie, and we then jump ahead to find her now going by the name Maud and working as a private carer. Most importantly, Maud has become a strict Roman Catholic, is clearly carrying mental scars, and is embarking on her own descent into madness. Adamant that she can save the soul of terminally ill Amanda, who Maud is now caring for, our titular saint even believes she herself is able to connect directly with God. For Amanda, she mocks Maud during a party, leading to Maud striking her and getting fired. Receiving a purported sign from God, Maud visits Amanda, who takes on a demonic form that causes Maud to fatally stab her. If that wasn't enough, Maud takes to the local beach, soaks herself in flammable liquid, torches herself, grows angel wings and ascends to heaven. Well, at least in her own mind. In reality, Maud simply sets herself on fire. Partly due to obsessive faith, partly fueled by mental illness, Maud pays the ultimate price. Number 1. Georgie Denbrough, It. Whether we're talking about the 4-part 1990 miniseries adaptation or Andy Muschietti's more recent duo of movies, the death of young Georgie Denbrough in It is one that only happens due to Georgie's faith in Pennywise. Having had a light-hearted chat with a sewer-dwelling Pennywise, we see Georgie chuckling along with the clown as they discuss balloons, popcorn and cotton candy. The moment that Georgie's goose is really cooked though is when he believes that Pennywise will give him back the paper boat he's lost down said sewer system. With complete faith that the clown will pass him his boat, naive Georgie reaches into the drain to take his paper vessel from Pennywise. Of course, this moment is immediately followed by Pennywise's mouth disfiguring and spouting a slew of sinister teeth, with Muschietti's It following King's source material in having Georgie's arm bitten off. From there, Pennywise would finish the job and drag Georgie into the sewers, and It was off to the races after giving watching audiences a first glimpse at Pennywise and his twisted ways. And that's our list. If you know of any other characters in horror movies punished for their faith, let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and swing on by our channel again sometime soon. I've been Tilly and this has been What Culture. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.